Jews have a golden history in the Muslim countries. For centuries, we live in Muslim countries, try not to hear it, much better than in the other countries.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, we burned the Jews.
We live much better in the Muslim. Everybody knows the history, knows that. Go in any Muslim country, they are welcoming Jews. Any Muslim country, Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, everywhere you go, they're welcoming Jews. Jews have a golden history in the Muslim countries. The problem is not between Islam and Judaism. The problem is occupation. The problem is occupation. And I see that many times I coming in Muslim communities, I speak in many mosques, in many universities, by Muslim communities. I'm always welcome. Always. I never see even any hatred from Muslims to Jews. But I know the design is coming from the Jewish origins. I'm shaming myself instead to be so thankful for the Muslim people, for the so good hospitality in all the Muslim countries. What they're doing for the Muslims. They're killing them. They're robbing away the land from them. It's so shameful. It's really shameful. But I hope and I'm sure it will come the day that the state of Israel will come to an end. And it will go back to the Muslim people, and then Jews and Muslims can live together in harmony and peace in Palestine as Muslim citizens.
It's not my personal opinion. What I'm representing, with God's help, is the opinion of very religious Jews around the world, including in Al-Quds in Jerusalem, including throughout Europe and throughout the world, basically. This movement, the concept of creating a state sovereignty, and what they want to call a Jewish sovereignty, that concept, is a movement that started around 150 years ago. It is a transformation from subservience to God into nationalism. Have a piece of land, to be a nation amongst nations, to be comparable to all the great countries. So there is actually we were put under 3 oaths, and that King Solomon, who built the temple, wrote a book of prophecies called Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, and he speaks about these 3 oaths that God put us under. One is that we should not return en masse to the Holy Land once we were dispersed amongst the nations. Secondly, we are not to rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside. A Canadian citizen has to pray for the well-being of the country, even if you're not happy, or let's say throughout a history, Jews were many times forbidden to buy land and they were taxed to a much higher degree. Still in all, we have to be loyal citizens and not rebel against that country. Thirdly, we are not to make any attempt to end exile. Why? Because it's because of our sins we are spread out. God is compassionate. Zionism was created by mostly non-religious Jews. It was a nationalist movement of people who estranged themselves from God, from the Torah. They were non-religious. I always like to carry around the picture of this was the Declaration of Independence, the first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, and they're making a so-called Jewish state, 1948.
Yes.
And so it's Jewish. Supposedly they're returning to God. They're saying it's the end of exile, and not one of them is covering their heads. You know, so you see what the falseness of it. But still in all, the Zionists, they put on a facade and of Judaism. They incorporated religion in order that the world should say, oh, it's a religious thing, we have to support them. The evangelistic Christians and the millions and millions support them. Jews who don't know the Torah well, unfortunately, the more non-religious, and they say, oh, and they have this emotional playing, we're returning 2,000 years, we're in exile. That's the difference between Judaism and Zionism. Now, so in other words, in short, very concisely, Judaism is subservience to God, Zionism is nationalism, and it's expressly forbidden for us. So around the world, the very religious community is in total opposition to the creation of the state. Because people, very wily, they're very efficient in what they do, the Zionists, and they like to refer to themselves as a Jewish state. They insist to be referred as a Jewish state. Why? Because then they know that if anybody wants to oppose what they're doing, criminal to the Palestinian people, they're taking their homes, they're stealing, they're killing, they're doing so many terrible crimes. But if you say a word, oh, you're speaking against a godly religion, and you're attacked as being anti-Semitic, and now they just made here, they're making a new law, they're trying to pass the IHRA, I think, and that's going to say that if you speak up against Zionism or the state of Israel, it's anti-Semitic. What could be more ludicrous, and what could be more unacceptable than And now I have to add something very important. In other words, for us to have a state, as I said, would be even in an uninhabited land. But being that they created this state in a land that they needed for their purpose, Palestine, but Palestine was an inhabited land. The majority were Muslims. The second group of people that lived there in numbers were the Christians, and the third were the Jews. Because as individuals, we were allowed to, by God, were permitted to live there, but not as a nation. So in order for them to create their state, they had to expel, at least on the best, the Palestinian people. That is, it flies in the face of what our Torah is about, because in the Torah it says, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. We have to be mahu rachum, rachum, just as God is compassionate, we have to be compassionate. I mean, and certainly not to steal or kill and expel people.